Hello and welcome to Trucker's World for another video. As you can see, it's that time of year again. I need a haircut. It's getting a bit long. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Not too bad on this end. Got 4 days work this week, although I am working at least one day each weekend at the moment. Now, whether that continues or whether it starts slowly dying off now, we'll see, and I'll keep you informed of that. So today's video is all about the power of a driver, and it's changed a lot over the years, especially with health and safety, etc. A lot of power now is in the driver's hands. Now, when I'm talking about power, I'm talking about safety precautions, stuff like that, So, we're talking about maybe if you get to a specific area. And this is aimed a lot at new drivers, because when you're a new driver, you don't tend to realise that, what kind of power you've got. And it's not obviously a massive amount, but it's enough to give you that power to think, is it safe to deliver or collect here? That's what it comes down to. So, for example, if you're reversing into a bay and there's no lights, you've got no lights anywhere around the building, on your van, anything like that might be deemed as unsafe. And strictly speaking, if it's reasonable, you might have to say to yourself, well, no, I'm not delivering here. It just depends, obviously, on the location. Like I say, if it's absolutely pitch black, lots of different bits hanging around that you might crash into, that's something you might have to just have a consider in your head and think, is it safe for me to just drop here? Do I need to go all the way back? And if I do need to go all the way back, is it safe? Because if it's not safe, I'm not going all the way back. And you're in your rights to do that. Okay, a quick example, a friend of mine who works here, we were delivering to a sub-depot, and bear in mind, lots of couriers are usually around these areas. This particular sub-depot, not the biggest, not the greatest access, and usually you drive in at an angle and then reverse back. On this occasion, there was cars and vans blocking his way. And he said, basically, look, I need that van moving. Sub-depots were awkward, saying that they can't move it, blah, 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 blah. And he says, well, I'm not going to do it then, because it's unsafe. Lots of people walking around, boots open. And he was in the right mind to do that. Anyway, phones up, obviously, the transport manager here. And luckily, the transport manager backed him up. And so he should. So he said, because they were saying, well, why don't you go back out and reverse and come in the long way? Strictly speaking, you could do that, but really, I agreed with him. It just wasn't safe. It really wasn't safe. Pitch black in the morning, loads of people and cars everywhere, very tight angle. It's just not safe. In the end, the transport manager did back him up and said, right, well, if you go back, reverse a little bit down the line, like they say, but don't reverse, obviously, where lots of people and cars, etc. And then let them, once you unload the pallets individually, they will then pull them off. Of course, there was a bit of a few arguments here and there. Why shouldn't he then pull the pallets all the way where he should do? And he refused. And he was in that right mind to refuse that. Health and safety reasons, dragging them along the ice and stony and where the paths were uneven. And in the end, he was completely backed up and they supported him. So that's just one example of where you need to be really observing about health and safety, definitely. Other areas, maybe access, if you're delivering or collecting around tight areas, very, like tight industrial areas that are built up around houses. I've been to a few of them. And if you're in a big wagon, big 18-ton wagon, and you're trying to get in between these two cars and the angle's tight to get into, do you know what? If you can't reasonably find a way in there, and I mean, you have to be reasonable about this, you can't go, oh, it's a little bit tight, I'm not doing that. If this car's blocking your way and you think, you know what, I can't get through there, I would drive past, find a safe place to park and phone up the transport manager and explain that. And 9 times out of 10, I think they will definitely back you up. Because at the end of the day, if you can't get in, you can't get in. Or if you can't get out, you can't get out. Okay? So, really important for new drivers to understand to put health and safety first in all aspects. With you, with the people you're delivering to, and others around you. It's very important that. All for other powers, which you do have, and obviously you shouldn't abuse these particular ones, definitely. But it's where, for example, if you're delivering and collecting and you've got specific times areas, so collections, for example, between 11 and 12 or 11 and 1, and if you're on a specific route, and you go in there and you get there at the time, you're waiting for that time, maybe you've got 20 minutes give or take time, if you know what I mean, and they're not ready, you know, potentially again, you might have that power to actually just drive off and leave. Okay, you might want to wait 10 minutes or so and say, well, look, you know, I'll give you 10 more minutes or something like that. But if they're, you know, taking the mickey a little bit, then definitely you're in your right to just move on from there. Okay, obviously I would check with the transport manager, because obviously if that delays the rest of your day, that will have a knock-on effect. So as long as you obviously, you know, if you've been told that the collection is going to be an hour later and you've got nowhere else to go, then you need to let the transport manager know that and say, well, look, I can do this, can do that, but I can't do the other. Okay, sometimes it gives a bit of friction between the manager, etc. It just depends on the company you're working for. But I've spoken to another employee from another blue chip company, a big courier company, and he'd gone to a delivery. They weren't ready at that specific time. Well, and he basically said, well, if you're not ready, I'm driving off. And the company was fine about that. You know, a couple of minutes, obviously, if they're late, you know, you've got to bend a little bit, and I always try and bend a little bit if I've got the time. But if it was quite a long time, and I had lots to do, I'd be considering, you know what, they're not ready, I'm moving on. Okay? Obviously, that depends on your day, the hours that you've got to do in your day, and basically your expectations of your job. Okay, you have to obviously ascertain that from the transport manager, but don't feel a need that you have to be taking the mickey out of, because you don't have to be. Okay, and basically that's about it really. The power is more for the health and safety, without a doubt, and you can think of all sorts of being in health and safety, all sorts. Like I said, it's not just about the driving aspect. It's, you know, if you're unloading as well, you have to have a safe area to unload. You know, if you, for example, unloading cages, pallets, like we do, if you're coming off and it's all icy on there, hey, you know, you've got to let somebody know and say, well, look, you know, unless there's specific salt on there, rock salt, specific safe areas where you can unload, don't be doing it, because if you have an accident, it will be your fault, and you'll be blamed for that. Well, why did you unload that? You know, did you not see it? Did you not realise it was unsafe? You know, as a driver, you've also got to have a risk assessment, obviously, on where you're unloading as well. So do not be bullied in to unloading specific areas, you know, lots of people around, you know, bad lighting, all that kind of stuff. Just stop what you're doing and make sure it's absolutely safe. Okay, as a new driver, it's difficult to comprehend all that, because you just want to get into the industry, and of course you want to, you don't want to displease anybody, so I get that. But anything that's unsafe, make sure you raise it, certainly with your manager, and if they choose or they tell you, look, okay, you've got to do it, then you need to have that on record. But personally, this day and age, I would say more often than not, they will back you up. Definitely if it's unsafe, because at the end of the day, they don't want a personal injury claim from you on their hands, and they certainly don't want a claim off anybody else, whether you've hit their car, whether you've hit a person, anything like that. They won't want that either. Okay, so as long as you're reasonable with them and you explain everything, you know, right down to the last detail, raise your concerns, then you'll be fine. As long as you're not being awkward, you know, just for the hell of it, then just protect yourself. Okay, so that's my advice. Raised a couple of things there. I'm sure there's a few bits on there that I have missed, so feel free to add comments on that as well. Okay, that's it for this video. Hopefully I'm going to be on for another video this week. Like I say, I'm on 4 days where I'm at, and I've been told that they are now phasing out the drivers, the agency drivers, but we'll see. And I think they're still going to need cover here and there for sick, and obviously when people are CPC training as well, which I've heard a bit about. So I think there'll still be a few days here and there, but we will see how the journey goes. Okay, so keep tuned. Thank you for watching, and keep on trucking.